The giant crystal ship hung in Earth's sky for 30 days. It sparkled like a diamond when the sun hit it. People on Earth were scared, but also amazed by its beauty. Major Dominic Hayes stood at the window of Space Command headquarters. He watched the alien ship with narrowed eyes. Unlike many others, he saw no beauty in it. He saw only danger. "Major Hayes, please report to Admiral Winters immediately," said a voice over the speaker system. Dominic sighed and straightened his uniform. He had been expecting this call. As one of Earth's top survival experts, he knew they would want his input on the alien situation. Admiral Laurel Winters was not alone in her office. Commander Paige Franklin stood beside her desk, her face grim. Science Officer Valerie Quinn sat in a corner, studying data on her tablet. "Sir, you wanted to see me?" Dominic saluted. Admiral Winters did not return the salute. Her eyes were red, as if she hadn't slept in days. "Major Hayes, I'm going to be direct. The aliens have made contact. They call themselves the Viraxian Matriarchy." "What do they want?" Dominic asked. Winters and Franklin exchanged looks. It was Science Officer Quinn who answered, her voice flat. "They want a human. One human male, to be precise." Dominic felt a chill run down his spine. "For what purpose?" "They claim it's for cultural exchange," said Admiral Winters. "But we have reason to believe it's something else entirely." Commander Franklin stepped forward. "Their technology is far beyond ours, Major. If they decided to attack, Earth would fall within hours. We need to buy time." Now Dominic understood. "And I'm the human they're getting." It wasn't a question, but Admiral Winters nodded anyway. "Your survival skills are unmatched. If anyone has a chance up there, it's you. So I'm a sacrifice." Dominic's voice was calm, but inside anger burned. Science Officer Quinn finally looked up from her tablet. Her eyes met his, then quickly looked away. "We're giving you every advantage we can, Major. A subdermal translator has been prepared. It will help you understand their language." "When do I leave?" he asked. "Now," said Admiral Winters. "The shuttle is ready." They didn't give him time to say goodbye to anyone. Not that he had many people to say goodbye to. His parents were dead, no wife, no kids. Maybe that's why they picked him. The shuttle was small and cramped. Commander Franklin strapped him in personally. "This isn't fair," she whispered, "but necessary." "Save the guilt for your diary, Commander," Dominic replied coldly. As the shuttle prepared to launch, Science Officer Quinn rushed in with a small case. "This is a combat knife," she said, pressing it into his hand. "It's made of a special alloy our scientists developed. It might not look like much, but it's strong enough to cut through almost anything." Dominic took the knife. "Why are you helping me?" Quinn looked around nervously. "Because this isn't right. The Admiral isn't telling you everything. The Viraxians, they have a ritual. They call it the offering." The shuttle engines roared to life, cutting off her words. Quinn was pulled away by security personnel. The last thing Dominic saw before the shuttle door closed was her mouth forming. The words, "Stay alive." The journey to the alien ship took less than an hour. As the shuttle approached, Dominic got his first close look at the vessel. It wasn't made of crystal as it appeared from Earth. It was something else, something that seemed alive, pulsing with inner light. A section of the ship opened like a mouth, revealing a docking bay. The shuttle was pulled inside by an invisible force. Dominic felt sweat break out on his forehead, but he kept his breathing steady. Panic would not help him now. When the shuttle door opened, Dominic was hit by strange smells, metallic and sweet at the same time. The air was breathable but felt thick in his lungs. Waiting for him were the Viraxians. Dominic had expected monsters, but what he saw was both better and worse. They looked almost human, except for their skin, which shimmered with colors that shifted like oil on water. Their eyes, 6 of them on each face, were arranged in a pattern that made Dominic feel dizzy when he looked at them. One stepped forward. She was taller than the others, with markings that glowed on her forehead. "I am High Priestess Nixlara," she said, her voice strangely musical. The translator under Dominic's skin tingled as it converted her speech. You are the offering from Earth. I'm Major Dominic Hayes, he replied, stepping out of the shuttle with his head held high. I was told this was a cultural exchange. The High Priestess made a sound that might have been laughter. In a way, it is. You will learn about our most sacred tradition. Dominic was surrounded by guards, all female, all armed with weapons that looked like they were grown rather than made. They were at least 7 feet tall with armor that seemed to be part of their bodies. Take him to the preparation chamber, ordered Nixalara. They marched him through corridors that curved and twisted in ways that defied normal geometry. Dominic tried to memorize the path, but it was impossible. Everything looked the same. Walls that pulsed with light, floors that seemed to adjust to his weight. In the preparation chamber, they stripped him of everything except his uniform and the knife Quinn had given him. They either didn't notice the weapon or didn't consider it a threat. What happens now? Dominic asked one of the guards. She looked at him with something like pity in her many eyes. Now you meet the Kazavraks. What's that? The sacred one, the devourer, the test of worthiness. The guard's colors shifted to a deep blue. You will be taken to its hunting grounds. Another Varaxian approached with a device that looked like a silver spider. Before Dominic could react, it was placed behind his ear. Pain shot through his head as the translator was activated. The human male appears adequate, he heard Nixalara say to someone outside his field of vision. Prepare him for the Kazvarak's hunting grounds. Dominic's mind raced. This wasn't a cultural exchange, it wasn't even a hostage situation. It was an execution. As they led him to yet another shuttle, smaller than the one that had brought him from Earth, Dominic made a silent promise to himself. He would not die easily, and if possible, he would not die at all. The shuttle took off from the main ship. Through a small window, Dominic saw they were heading toward a moon that orbited a massive gas giant. The moon was covered in purple vegetation. That's where the Kazavraks lives, said one of the guards, noticing his interest. It is a great honor to be its food. I'll try to remember that when it's eating me, Dominic replied dryly. The guard's colors rippled in what might have been amusement. You have spirit. The Kazavraks will enjoy that. As they entered the moon's atmosphere, Dominic clutched the knife hidden in his boot. Whatever the Kazavraks was, it was about to learn that humans didn't make easy meals. The shuttle landed in a clearing surrounded by tall purple trees. The air smelled like metal and sweet fruit. Dominic was pushed out of the shuttle before the door had fully opened. He stumbled onto soft ground that felt like moss. Good hunting, human, one of the guards called out. Her many eyes blinked at different times. Try to make it interesting for the Kazvraks. The shuttle door closed and the craft lifted off quickly. Dominic was alone on an alien moon with nothing but his uniform and a hidden knife. Thanks for the vacation, he muttered, looking around at the strange jungle. The trees had trunks that twisted like braided rope. Their leaves were purple and blue, some as big as car doors. 3 suns hung in the sky, making the air hot and humid. Dominic's military training kicked in. First priority, find water. Second, find shelter. Third, assess the threat. He listened carefully. The jungle was alive with sounds, clicks, whistles, and low rumbling noises. Nothing sounded immediately dangerous, but he couldn't be sure. Moving cautiously, Dominic followed a slope in the ground. Water usually flowed downhill. After 20 minutes of careful walking, he found a stream. The water was clear but had a slight blue tint. He dipped his finger in and sniffed it. No strong smell. He touched it to his tongue. It tasted like normal water with a hint of sweetness. Dominic knew the risk of drinking alien water, but dehydration would kill him faster than potential poisons. He cupped his hands and drank a small amount. When he didn't feel sick after a few minutes, he drank more. With his thirst satisfied, Dominic focused on finding shelter. The twisted trees didn't offer much protection. He needed a cave or at least a defensible position. Following the stream, he searched for rocky outcroppings. The 3 suns were starting to set when Dominic found what he was looking for, a small cave in a hillside near the stream. It was shallow, more of an overhang really, but it would protect. him from whatever rain might fall and keep him hidden from view. Dominic gathered some large leaves to make a bed, then collected some of the strange fruits he had seen growing on low bushes. He sniffed each one carefully, taking small bites to test them. Some tasted bitter and he spat them out. Others were sweet and filled his empty stomach. As darkness fell, the temperature dropped rapidly. Dominic shivered in his thin uniform. He needed fire, but had no way to make one. Instead, he wrapped himself in large leaves and huddled against the back of the cave. The night was full of strange sounds and glowing creatures. Small flying things that looked like dragonflies lit up the darkness with blue and green light. Under different circumstances, Dominic might have found it beautiful. He didn't sleep much that first night. Every sound made him reach for his knife, but nothing attacked him. When morning came, Dominic felt slightly better. He had survived the first night. Now he needed to prepare for the Kazvraks, whatever it was. Over the next few days, Dominic established a routine. He explored the area around his cave, marking his path with broken branches. He found more edible fruits and even caught some small creatures that tasted like fish. He made simple tools, a spear from a straight branch sharpened with his knife, a crude hammer from a heavy stone tied to a stick with plant fibers. On the fourth day, Dominic found something disturbing. Bones. They were scattered in a clearing about an hour's walk from his cave. Most were unrecognizable, but some looked disturbingly human-like. Some had teeth marks from a very large mouth. So that's what happens to the offerings, Dominic said to himself. He studied the bones carefully. Whatever the Kazvraks was, it had powerful jaws and probably hunted alone, based on the tooth patterns. Dominic stepped up his preparations. He dug pits and covered them with leaves, placing sharpened sticks at the bottom. He prepared areas where he could climb quickly to escape something on the ground. He made more spears and hid them in different locations. On the seventh day, Dominic felt the ground shake. At first he thought it was an earthquake. Then he heard it, a low rumbling sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The translator behind his ear buzzed with static. Dominic ran to the nearest tree and climbed as high as he could. From his vantage point, he saw something moving through the jungle. It was huge, pushing aside trees as if they were grass. The Kazvraks emerged into a clearing. Dominic's breath caught in his throat. It was like nothing he had ever seen. It stood at least 20 feet tall at the shoulder, with 6 powerful limbs that moved with surprising grace. Its body was covered in scales that shifted color like the skin of the Viraxians. Its head was long and flat, with 4 eyes that glowed with an inner light. Multiple rows of teeth were visible when it opened its mouth to taste the air. It looked like a cross between a dinosaur and a giant lizard, but with an intelligence in its eyes that no earth reptile possessed. It moved with purpose, not the random wandering of an animal. The Kazvrak stopped suddenly and raised its head. It sniffed the air, then looked directly at Dominic's tree. Its 4 eyes blinked one after another. Then it charged. The tree shook as the beast slammed into it. Dominic clung to the branches, his heart pounding. The Kazvrak circled the tree, its eyes never leaving him. It wasn't just trying to knock him down. It was thinking, planning. The beast backed up, then charged again. This time, the tree cracked at its base. Dominic knew it wouldn't survive another hit. He had seconds to decide. As the tree began to fall, Dominic jumped. Not down toward the waiting Kazvraks, but sideways to the next tree. His hands caught a branch, and he swung himself up just as the Kazvraks reached his previous position. The beast roared in frustration. The sound was so loud it made Dominic's ears ring. It backed up again, preparing for another charge. Dominic didn't wait. He climbed higher, then began moving from tree to tree using the branches like a natural highway. The Kazvraks followed below, always watching, never giving up. By sunset, Dominic was exhausted. He had led the beast away from his cave, but he couldn't keep running forever. He needed a plan. As he rested in the high branches of a particularly tall tree, an idea formed in his mind. The Kazvraks was smart. smarter than any animal had a right to be. It had been patient, following him for hours without tiring, but intelligence could be a weakness as well as a strength. Smart creatures got curious, and curiosity could be used against them. Dominic broke off a large branch and stripped it of leaves. Using vines, he tied his knife to the end, creating a spear. It wasn't much against such a massive creature, but he only needed one good hit. The Khazavrax waited below, its scales now a deep purple that blended with the twilight. Its 4 eyes glowed brighter in the growing darkness. Dominic took a deep breath. Then he called out, "Hey, ugly, looking for me?" The beast's head snapped up, its eyes focusing on him with frightening intensity. It made a sound. Not a roar this time, but something almost like speech. The translator behind Dominic's ear buzzed again, but no words came through. "Can't understand you, big guy," Dominic said. "But that's okay. Actions speak louder than words." He jumped to a lower branch, deliberately making himself more visible. The Khazavrax raised itself up on its hind legs, bringing its head level with Dominic's position. It opened its mouth, revealing rows of gleaming teeth. This was the moment. Dominic lunged forward with his spear, aiming for one of the creature's eyes. The Khazavrax was faster than he expected. It jerked its head sideways, and the spear only grazed its scaled skin. Before Dominic could pull back, one of the beast's front limbs swiped at him. Sharp claws ripped through his uniform and into his side. Pain exploded through his body. He lost his balance and fell. The ground rushed up to meet him. He hit hard. The breath knocked from his lungs. Blood soaked his uniform. The Khazavrax loomed. Over him, its massive head blocking out the sky. Dominic gripped his spear with both hands. If he was going to die, he would go down fighting. The beast lowered its head until its eyes were inches from Dominic's face. It made that strange speaking sound again. The translator buzzed and crackled, then suddenly cleared. "Human different, not run only, fight back." Dominic froze. The beast was talking, and the translator was working. "You can speak?" he gasped. The Khazavrax's eyes blinked in sequence. "Speak, yes, long time no one understand. Viraxians forget old speech." Dominic's mind raced. This changed everything. The Khazavrax wasn't just a beast. It was intelligent, sentient, and if it could speak, maybe it could reason. "My name is Dominic Hayes," he said, keeping his voice steady despite the pain in his side. "I was sent here as a sacrifice, but I don't want to die." The Khazavrax was silent for a long moment, then it said, "Dominic Hayes, I am—" The next sound was untranslatable, a series of clicks and rumbles. "I can't say that," Dominic admitted. "Can I call you something else?" The beast seemed to consider this. "Choose name." Dominic thought of Earth mythology, of powerful creatures from ancient stories. "How about Typhon? It was a mighty beast from my world's legends." "Typhon." The beast tested the name. "Yes. Typhon, accept." It backed away slightly, giving Dominic room to sit up. Blood was still flowing from the wound in his side, but it wasn't as bad as he had feared. "Why Viraxians send you?" Typhon asked. "They said it was tradition. Something about an offering." Typhon made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Not tradition, prison. Typhon prisoner, not God." The next morning, Dominic and Typhon began implementing their plan. They knew the Viraxians were watching. It was time to give them a show they would never forget. "Ready?" Dominic asked as he secured the harness on Typhon's back. "Ready," Typhon replied, his scales shifting to a vibrant red that showed his excitement. Dominic climbed onto Typhon's back. He had fashioned a spear from a straight branch and his knife. He held it high above his head as Typhon walked into the largest clearing they could find. "Let's make sure their cameras get a good view," Dominic said. Typhon roared, a sound so powerful it shook the trees around them. Then he reared up on his hind legs, lifting Dominic high into the air. Dominic raised his spear and shouted at the sky, "Tell your empress that the sacrifice has become the master. Tell her that the Khazavrax serves me now." They spent the entire day performing for the hidden cameras. Dominic directed Typhon through a series of movements that looked like training, exercises. In reality, they were strengthening their bond, learning to move as one. By sunset, Dominic was exhausted but satisfied. "They've had enough of a show for one day," he said as he slid from Typhon's back. "Tomorrow we'll do more." "Think Viraxians watching?" Typhon asked. "I'm counting on it," Dominic replied with a grim smile. In her private chamber aboard the Crystalline, flagship High Priestess Nixlara watched the footage from the hunting ground with growing alarm. The human had not only survived but had somehow tamed the Khazvraks. It was unprecedented. It was impossible. "This cannot be real," she muttered to herself, her colors shifting to anxious yellows and greens. The Khazvraks is untamable. Yet the evidence was before her eyes. The human rode upon the beast's back, directing it with gestures and words. The Khazvraks obeyed, moving with a precision that suggested true cooperation, not forced compliance. Nixlara knew she should report this to Empress Savaril immediately, but such news would not be welcome. The Empress believed strongly in the sacred nature of the Khazvraks. To learn that a mere human had tamed the creature would be problematic, but hiding the truth would be even more dangerous. With a feeling of dread, Nixlara sent a message requesting an audience with the Empress. Empress Savaril received the news with outward calm, but Nixlara could see the rapid color changes beneath her royal robes that betrayed her agitation. "Show me," the Empress commanded. Nixlara projected the footage onto the chamber wall. The Empress watched in silence as the human and the Khazvraks moved together through the jungle, as the human directed the beast with confident gestures, as the beast responded with immediate obedience. "This is a deception," the Empress declared when the footage ended. "The human cannot have tamed our sacred beast. It is forbidden by the ancient laws." "The evidence suggests otherwise, Your Radiance," Nixlara said carefully. The Empress's colors flashed with anger. "Then we must see for ourselves. Prepare a delegation. We will go to the hunting grounds." "Is that wise, Your Radiance?" Nixlara asked, unable to hide her concern. "If the human truly controls the Khazvraks, then we will destroy them both," the Empress interrupted. "The sanctity of our traditions must be preserved. Prepare the warships." Back on the hunting moon, Dominic and Typhon continued their performances, growing bolder each day. They ran through the jungle at top speed, jumped over ravines, and even staged mock battles where Dominic appeared to be commanding Typhon to attack specific targets. "They'll have to respond soon," Dominic said as they rested by a stream on the 5th day. "No way they can ignore this. What if they just send weapons?" Typhon asked. "Kill from sky?" Dominic had considered this possibility. "They won't. The Khazvraks, you, are too important to them. They'll want to capture you, not kill you. And they'll want to know how I managed to tame you." "Not tame," Typhon grumbled. "Partners." Dominic smiled and patted the beast's flank. "I know that, but they don't. And that's our advantage." On the 7th day, they got the response they had been waiting for. Dominic was checking the harness when Typhon suddenly raised his head, all 4 eyes focusing on the sky. "Ships coming," he said. "Many ships." Dominic couldn't hear or see anything yet, but he trusted Typhon's senses. "How many?" 3 big. "Many small." Typhon's scales shifted to a tense purple. "Armed." "Just as we expected," Dominic said, trying to sound confident despite the knot of anxiety in his stomach. "Remember the plan. We act submissive at first. Let them think they have the upper hand." Typhon made a sound that might have been a snort. "Typhon, remember, not first battle." They moved to the large clearing where they had been performing for the cameras. As they waited, Dominic checked his makeshift weapons one last time. The knife from Science Officer Quinn was secured in a sheath at his belt. His spear was strapped to his back. Various other tools were hidden in pockets he had sewn into his tattered uniform. Soon even Dominic could hear the ships approaching. They appeared as silver dots in the sky, growing larger by the second. 3 larger vessels, shaped like elongated diamonds, led a swarm of smaller craft that buzzed around them like insects. "Warships," Typhon said. "Empress comes." "How can you tell?" Dominic asked. "Center ship has royal markings." Typhon's eyes narrowed. "Empress never come to hunting grounds before. You make big impression, Dominic Hayes." The ships descended into the clearing, sending waves of dust and debris flying in all directions. Dominic shielded his eyes with his arm. Typhon remained perfectly still, only his scales shifting colors to show his tension. The largest ship landed first, its crystal hull pulsing with inner light. A section of the hull dissolved, forming an opening. Out stepped a procession of Viraxians, each more elaborately adorned than the last. Their skin shimmered with patterns that Dominic now recognized as indicators of rank and status. Last to emerge was a Viraxian taller than all the others, wearing robes that seemed to be made of living light. Her 6 eyes were larger, more expressive. The patterns on her skin were so complex they made Dominic's eyes hurt to look at them. "The Empress," Typhon whispered, his voice barely audible. Dominic straightened his posture but kept his expression neutral. The plan required him to appear confident but not threatening. Not yet. The Empress approached, flanked by guards whose weapons were pointed at Dominic and Typhon. She stopped a safe distance away, her many eyes scanning them with evident curiosity and disgust. "Human," she said, her voice musical yet cold. "You have violated the sacred laws of the hunt. The Khazvrax is not meant to be tamed. It is meant to be feared." The translator behind Dominic's ear tingled as it converted her speech. He decided to play dumb at first. "I'm just trying to survive, Your Highness? Majesty? What do I call you?" "You may address me as Empress Savaril, ruler of the Viraxian matriarchy and keeper of the ancient covenants." Her colors shifted to a haughty blue. "Though you will not be addressing me for long. Your life is forfeit." Dominic raised an eyebrow. "For what crime? Being sent here against my will? Surviving when I was meant to die?" "For perverting the natural order," the Empress replied. "The Khazvrax is a sacred beast, a symbol of our dominion over the lesser species of this galaxy. It is not a pet for a primitive human." Dominic patted Typhon's neck. "He doesn't seem to mind." The Empress's colors flashed with anger. "It is an animal. It does not have preferences. It exists to hunt and to be worshipped." Typhon rumbled beneath. Dominic, a sound that only he could recognize as barely contained rage. Dominic stroked the beast's neck soothingly. "Not yet. They needed to wait for the right moment." "If it's just an animal," Dominic said casually, "then why do you worship it? Seems like a waste of time to worship something that can't appreciate it." The Empress turned to the Viraxian beside her, High Priestess Nixalara. Dominic realized. "This human is both ignorant and disrespectful. Prepare him for execution." Nixalara stepped forward, holding a device that looked like a silver spider. "It would be prudent to understand how he tamed the beast first, Your Radiance. Such knowledge could be valuable." The Empress considered this, her colors shifting thoughtfully. "Very well. Human, explain how you gained control over the Khazvrax." Dominic had been waiting for this opening. "I'd be happy to explain, Empress, but it's complicated. I'd need to show you." "Show me?" The Empress's colors showed suspicion. "Yes. It's a technique from my planet, a way of communicating with animals." Dominic kept his voice casual, as if discussing the weather. "I can demonstrate if you'd like." The Empress conferred briefly with Nixalara, their voices too low for Dominic's translator to pick up. Finally, she turned back to him. "You may demonstrate, but be warned, any threatening moves will result in your immediate destruction." Dominic nodded. "Of course. I'll need to whisper the command words to the Khazvrax first. They're in my language, which seems to have a special effect on him." The Empress gestured permission. Dominic leaned down as if to whisper in Typhon's ear. "Get ready," he murmured. "On my signal, go for the Empress's ship. I'll handle the guards." Typhon's scales rippled in acknowledgement. Dominic straightened up and smiled at the Empress. Now I'll show you how I give commands. First, the beast must be calm. He stroked Typhon's neck, making a show of soothing the already calm creature. Then, I use specific gestures that mimic the neural patterns of its brain. Dominic stared at Typhon, trying to understand what the creature had just said. A prisoner. The Viraxians told me this was your hunting ground. Hunting ground. Yes, but also prison, Typhon replied. The massive beast settled onto its haunches, its scales shifting to a deep blue color. Typhon, last of kind. Viraxians kill all others long ago. Dominic pressed a hand to his wounded side, wincing at the pain. Why did they keep you alive? Old war. Typhon kind ruled stars before Viraxians. When they win war, they keep Typhon as trophy, symbol of victory. The beast's four eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Dominic was beginning to recognize as sadness or regret. Send food, sacrifices, watch Typhon hunt, entertainment. The realization hit Dominic like a punch to the gut. The Viraxians hadn't sent him here as a diplomatic sacrifice. They had sent him as entertainment, to watch him be hunted and killed by what they thought was just a beast. But Typhon was far more than that. How long have you been here? Dominic asked. Typhon made a rumbling sound. Many star cycles, hundreds by your counting. Hundreds of years? Alone? Dominic couldn't imagine such isolation. Yes, alone. Typhon's scales rippled with colors that conveyed emotions Dominic couldn't begin to understand. Others sent here. None talk, only run, only die. Dominic tried to stand but fell back with a groan. The wound in his side was worse than he'd thought. I need to treat this, he said, more to himself than to Typhon. To his surprise, Typhon moved closer. Follow. Typhon, no healing plants. Dominic hesitated. Despite their conversation, Typhon was still a massive predator who had just sliced him open less than 10 minutes ago. But he had few options. If the wound became infected, he would die slowly and painfully. Lead the way, he said finally. Typhon moved through the jungle with surprising grace for such a large creature. Dominic limped after him, one hand pressed to his side. They traveled for what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes. Finally, they reached a small clearing filled with plants Dominic hadn't seen before. These heal, Typhon said, indicating plants with star-shaped leaves. Crush, put on wound. Dominic carefully picked several leaves and crushed them between his fingers. A sticky sap oozed out, smelling like mint and something else he couldn't identify. He lifted his torn shirt and applied the sap to his wound. It stung for a moment, then went numb. Thank you, Dominic said. Typhon made that rumbling sound again. Typhon curious. Want talk more? Long time no talk. They spent the night in the clearing. Dominic built a small fire which seemed to fascinate Typhon. The beast watched the flames with all four eyes wide open. Fire good, Typhon said. Warm. As they talked, Dominic learned more about Typhon and his kind. They had been spacefaring. Once exploring the stars in ships made of living crystal, they had encountered the Viraxians and shared their knowledge. But the Viraxians had turned on them, using the very technology they had been given to hunt Typhon's species to extinction. Why did they attack you? Dominic asked. Fear, Typhon replied simply. Viraxians fear what's stronger. We were stronger. Dominic nodded. He understood fear as a motivation. Humans had done terrible things out of fear, too. Your wound needs more medicine, Typhon said, looking at Dominic's side where blood had seeped through the leaf poultice. Over the next few days, Typhon showed Dominic more healing plants and edible fruits. The wound in Dominic's side began to heal faster than he would have thought possible. The alien plants had powerful medicinal properties. As they spent more time together, Dominic noticed changes in Typhon's behavior. The beast seemed more animated, more engaged. It was as if centuries of loneliness were falling away, revealing the intelligent being beneath. One night, as they sat by a fire, which had become their nightly ritual, Typhon said, Dominic, different from others sent here. How so? Dominic asked, though he could guess the answer. Not just run. Think. Fight. Talk. Typhon's scales shifted to a warm amber color. Respect Typhon, not fear only. Dominic smiled. Where I come from, we have a saying, respect has to be earned, you've earned mine. Earned, Typhon repeated as if testing the word. Yes, good word. On the 10th day, Dominic had recovered enough to explore further from their camp. Typhon showed him a hidden valley where crystal-clear pools bubbled with warm water. Healing waters, Typhon explained. Good for wounds. Dominic stripped off his tattered uniform and eased into one of the pools. The warm water stung his wound at first, then soothed it. He felt strength returning to his muscles. This is amazing, he said, leaning back against the smooth rocks. We have places like this on Earth. We call them hot springs. Earth, Typhon repeated. Your world. Tell more. Dominic spent hours describing Earth to Typhon. The oceans, the mountains, the cities, the people. Typhon listened with rapt attention, asking questions that showed a keen intelligence. Sounds good place, Typhon said when Dominic finally ran out of things to say. Free place. Parts of it are, Dominic agreed. We have our problems too. Wars, pollution, inequality, but we're working on it. Better than here, Typhon said. Here only prison. An idea began to form in Dominic's mind. What if you could leave? Escape? Typhon's scales flashed a bright yellow. Surprise or shock, Dominic guessed. How? Viraxians control sky. No ships here. They send ships to drop off sacrifices, Dominic pointed out. And they must have ways of watching us. There are probably drones or satellites. Yes, Typhon confirmed. Small flying machines watch. Report to Viraxians. Dominic nodded. So they know I'm still alive. And they know I've made contact with you. Yes. Watching now. Typhon looked up at the sky. Always watching. Then let's give them something to watch, Dominic said with a grin. Something they won't expect. Over the next week, Dominic implemented his plan. First, he needed to understand Typhon better, not just as an ally, but as a potential weapon. He asked about Typhon's abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. Can control body heat, Typhon explained, demonstrating by making his scales glow with warmth. Can change colors, can see heat like your infrared, can jump very high. What about in space? Dominic asked. Can you survive in a vacuum? Yes, Typhon said. My kind evolved in space originally, can create shield around body, hold air inside. This was better than Dominic had hoped. And you can carry things inside this shield? Other living things? Typhon's eyes blinked in sequence as he considered. Small things, yes. Human-sized things, maybe. Never tried. Dominic smiled. Would you be willing to try with me? Typhon's scales rippled with colors. Dangerous, might fail, you might die. I might die anyway, Dominic pointed out. The Viraxians sent me here to die. They're not going to rescue me. True, Typhon admitted. What is plan? Dominic outlined his idea. It was risky, borderline suicidal. But if it worked, both he and Typhon would be free. First, he said, we need to make them think I've tamed you, that I've somehow made you. My pet. Typhon's scales flashed red. Typhon no pet. I know that, Dominic said quickly. But they don't. They think you're just an animal. A dangerous one, but still just an animal. If they believe I've tamed you, they'll be curious. They'll want to see up close. Typhon's colors settled back to a neutral blue. Understand. Trick. Exactly, Dominic said. A trick to get them to send more ships. And when they do, we take ship, Typhon finished. Escape. Not just escape, Dominic said. We make them pay for what they've done, to your people, to all the sacrifices they've sent here. Typhon's four eyes fixed on Dominic with an intensity that would have terrified him a week ago. Now he met that gaze steadily. Vengeance, Typhon said. It wasn't a question. Justice, Dominic corrected. There's a difference. They began preparations immediately. Using plant fibers and the toughest leaves they could find, Dominic crafted a makeshift harness for Typhon. It looked ridiculous against the beast's massive body, but it would serve its purpose, to make the Varaxians believe Dominic had somehow domesticated the fearsome Kazvrax. How feel? Dominic asked as he adjusted the harness. Strange, Typhon admitted. Long time since anything on Typhon's back. Dominic patted the beast's flank. You'll get used to it. Now let's practice. Climbing onto Typhon's back for the first time was terrifying. The beast stood over 20 feet tall at the shoulder, and there was nothing to hold on to except the flimsy harness. Dominic took a deep breath and pulled himself up, using the natural ridges of Typhon's scales as footholds. Once, on top, the view was incredible. He could see over the tallest trees in the jungle. The three suns of this system cast multiple shadows beneath them, creating a surreal landscape. How do I steer you? Dominic asked. Not steer, Typhon replied, a hint of offense in his tone. Ask Typhon, go where want to go. Fair enough, Dominic said with a laugh. Can we try moving around the clearing? Slowly at first. Typhon began to walk, his 6 legs moving in a complex pattern that created a surprisingly smooth ride. Dominic held onto the harness with both hands, gradually relaxing as he became accustomed to the motion. This is amazing, he called out. Can you go faster? Typhon increased his pace, moving from a walk to a trot. The ride became bumpier, but Dominic adjusted his position, bending his knees to absorb the shocks. Even faster, he urged. Typhon broke into a run, covering ground at an incredible speed. Trees flashed by on either side. The wind rushed past Dominic's face. The stolen Viraxian ship flew through space, its crystalline hull pulsing with light. Inside, Dominic watched as Typhon manipulated the strange controls, guiding them away from the hunting moon and deeper into the star system. Where are we going? Dominic asked. Safe place first, Typhon replied. Then plan next move. The ship's interior was unlike any spacecraft Dominic had ever imagined. There were no buttons, no switches, no screens. Instead, the walls themselves displayed information in patterns of light that shifted and changed constantly. The floor seemed to be alive, adjusting to support their weight as they moved. How does this ship work? Dominic asked, running his hand along a pulsing wall. Living crystal, Typhon explained. Grown, not built. Responds to thought and touch. Dominic was fascinated. So it's partly alive? Yes, Viraxians stole technology from my kind. Typhon's scales darkened with old anger. Used against us in war. A section of the wall suddenly flashed red. Strange symbols appeared, moving too quickly for Dominic to follow. Problem? He asked. Message from Empress, Typhon said. Demanding return of royal ship, threatening destruction. Dominic snorted. Tell her to get in line. Typhon made a rumbling sound that might have been laughter. Already blocked signal, but more ships follow. Need hide. The view outside the ship changed as Typhon adjusted their course. They were heading toward a massive gas giant with multiple rings. Numerous moons orbited the planet, ranging from tiny rock formations to substantial worlds. Third moon, Typhon said, pointing with one of his front limbs. Has caves, deep caves. Good hiding. The ship accelerated, leaving a trail of light that quickly faded in the vacuum of space. Dominic marveled at the speed. Earth's fastest spacecraft would seem like snails compared to this vessel. They reached the moon in minutes. It was barren, covered in craters and dusty plains. Typhon guided the ship into a massive canyon that cut across the surface like a wound. At the bottom of the canyon, hidden from orbital view, was the entrance to a cave system. The ship slowed and entered the largest cave mouth. Inside, the space opened up dramatically, revealing a cavern big enough to hold several ships their size. Typhon set the vessel down gently on the stone floor. Safe for now, he said. Ship has shield, hides from sensors. Dominic let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Now what? We can't hide forever. No, Typhon agreed. Now we fight back. Dominic spent the next few hours exploring the ship. It was designed for Viraxians, which meant everything was slightly too large for human comfort, but it also meant there was plenty of room for Typhon to move around, despite his massive size. He found what appeared to be a food storage area. The ship produced nutrient gel that tasted terrible but would keep him alive. Typhon didn't need to eat often, which was fortunate since there was nothing on the barren moon for him to hunt. In what seemed to be the command center, Dominic and Typhon studied the Viraxian communications. By listening to their transmissions, they pieced together what was happening. Empress very angry, Typhon said, his scales rippling with amusement. Ordered fleet to search all moons, offering big reward for capture. Dead or alive? Dominic asked. Alive, Typhon replied. She wants, what is human word? Example. Make example. Of course she does, Dominic muttered. Any mention of Earth? Typhon listened to more transmissions. Yes, fleet preparing to visit Earth. Not attack yet. Just show power. Dominic's heart sank. We need to warn them. Earth has no defense against ships like these. Can send message, Typhon said, but Viraxians will detect. Then we need a distraction, Dominic said, pacing the command center. Something big enough to draw their attention away from Earth. Typhon's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Have idea, but dangerous. At this point, I'm open to dangerous ideas, Dominic said with a grim smile. Royal ship special, Typhon explained. Has codes. Access to all Viraxian systems, including weapons. Dominic stopped pacing. You're saying we can control their weapons? From here? Some, Typhon clarified. Not all, but enough for big distraction. The plan took shape quickly. Using the royal ship's access codes, they would activate the defensive systems of the Viraxian homeworld, making them think they were under attack. In the confusion, they would send a warning to Earth, then make their escape. It won't give Earth much time, Dominic admitted. But it might be enough for them to prepare some kind of defense, or at least negotiate from a position of strength, Typhon agreed. Ready when you are. Dominic took a deep breath. Let's do it. Typhon placed his front limbs on the control panels. The ship's interior lit up with swirling patterns of light. Symbols flashed across the walls as Typhon accessed. The Viraxian defense network. Connected, he announced. Sending false attack signals now. The response was immediate. Urgent communications flooded the system. Alarms blared across the Viraxian fleet. Ships changed course, racing back to defend their homeworld from the non-existent threat. Now, Dominic said, send the message to Earth. Typhon redirected the ship's communications array. Need coordinates. Dominic rattled off Earth's coordinates, hoping his memory was accurate. Address it to Admiral Laurel Winters, Earth Space Command. Priority 1. The message was simple. Viraxian fleet inbound. Hostile intentions. Advanced crystal technology. Conventional weapons ineffective. Target their propulsion systems. They can't maneuver in atmosphere. You have 48 hours. Major Dominic Hayes. Message sent, Typhon confirmed. Now let's get out of here before they realize what we've done, Dominic said. The ship hummed to life, rising from the cavern floor. Typhon guided it out of the cave and up into space. They stayed close to the moon's surface, using its gravity to slingshot them away from the gas giant. Where now? Typhon asked. Dominic considered their options. We can't go to Earth yet. It would lead the Viraxians straight to it. We need to keep their attention on us. Attack? Typhon suggested. Yes, Dominic agreed. But not randomly. We need to hit them where it hurts. You know their weak points better than anyone. Typhon's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. Temple, moons, sacred places, where they keep records of my kind. Perfect, Dominic said. Let's start there. The ship accelerated, streaking across the star system toward a cluster of small moons that orbited a distant sun. According to Typhon, These moons housed the most sacred temples of the Viraxian matriarchy, where they kept records of their history, including the truth about Typhon's species. If we expose their lies, Dominic said, maybe other species in this sector will stop fearing them. Maybe they'll fight back. Good plan, Typhon agreed. Start rebellion. As they approached the temple moons, they detected minimal defenses. The Viraxians were so confident in their dominance that they had left their most sacred sites practically unguarded. They never expect attack here, Typhon explained. Too sacred. Their mistake, Dominic said grimly. Their first target was the smallest moon, home to a temple dedicated to the taming of the beasts, the Viraxian version of how they had defeated Typhon's kind. The ship swept in low, its weapon systems targeting the temple's main structure. Don't destroy it completely, Dominic cautioned. We want to expose the truth, not erase it. Typhon adjusted the weapons. The ship fired, sending pulses of energy that shattered the temple's outer walls but left the inner sanctum intact. They landed nearby and Dominic prepared to disembark. Stay with ship, Typhon said. Too dangerous. We're in this together, Dominic insisted. Besides, I can fit into spaces you can't. The ship created an atmosphere bubble around them as they exited. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, making Dominic feel almost weightless as he walked beside Typhon toward the damaged temple. Inside, they found what they were looking for, records carved into living crystal, telling the true story of the war between the Viraxians and Typhon's species. Not a glorious conquest, but a treacherous betrayal. Not divine right, but genocide. We need to broadcast this, Dominic said. Let everyone see the truth. They connected the temple's communication array to their ship, sending the images and translations throughout the sector. By the time they left for the second temple moon, alarms were blaring across the Viraxian Empire. They hit 3 more temples before the Viraxian fleet finally caught up with them. As they prepared to jump to another system, sensors detected multiple ships closing in. Empress leads fleet personally, Typhon reported, reading the ship's displays. Very angry now. Good, Dominic said with grim satisfaction. Let's make her even angrier. They changed course, heading directly for the Viraxian flagship. It was a bold, possibly suicidal move, but Dominic had one more card to play. Can you access their ship's systems? He asked. Like you did with the defense network? Maybe, Typhon said. Need get closer. The royal ship accelerated, dodging energy blasts from the pursuing fleet. The Viraxians were firing to disable, not destroy. They wanted their sacred vessel back intact. They're holding back, Dominic observed. We're not. Their ship streaked toward the massive flagship, weapons firing continuously. The flagship's shields absorbed most of the damage, but some shots got through, creating cracks in its crystalline hull. Close enough, Typhon announced as they came alongside the flagship. Connecting now. The ship's interior pulsed with frantic patterns of light as Typhon accessed the flagship's systems. Warnings flashed across the walls.